I'm riding every roller coaster at Busch Gardens, Tampa, like this one that dangles you over a 200-foot vertical drop, one of the world's weirdest spinning coasters, and even one of the best, most extreme and out-of-control coasters on the planet, starting with Montu. This is apparently one of the most intense coasters in the world. It starts by snapping into a wild curve drop, diving down to the ground, and immediately blasting into a brutal loop so intense I thought it was gonna rip my legs off. Before I could even process it, we fell out of the loop and shot through a tunnel, rising into a crazy half loop that slammed me into my seat before twisting to the side as we dove down. We shot back up again and whipped through a super fast roll, then plummeted to the ground. We went straight for a second, and I thought we were gonna go into a peaceful turn, but out of nowhere I got snapped to the side as we dove into a trench, throwing me into my seat as we rose back up, then snapped to the side again. We popped up and went through some brakes, giving me just a second to catch my breath. I didn't have long though as we twisted to the side and fell to the ground, flying through another loop that held me upside down for a second before dropping into a trench. We rocketed through a super forceful helix, then dropped back down, twisted into another trench, and I thought the ride was over. Out of nowhere though, we spun through a crazy corkscrew that caught me completely off guard. Finally, we twisted out of the trench and hit the brakes, giving me a second to catch my breath. Oh my goodness, that was amazing, dude. I cannot believe how fast that thing was and how it just never slowed down. Like every single part of that ride was taken at just a stinking breakneck pace. That is legitimately amongst the most intense coasters I've ever ridden. From there, I went over to the coaster literally right next to Montu, which is one of the weirdest coasters I've ever ridden, Cobra's Curse. I don't know too much about this. I think it's like a family spinning coaster, and from the outside, it looks just immaculately well themed, like Disney and Universal levels, so I'm actually really excited about this. The theming continued through the really well done line, taking me through an archaeological site. I didn't have much time to take in the detail though, because there was literally no line, and I walked straight onto the ride, which starts by taking us through this tomb where we see tons of snakes in pots with ominous glowing eyes and warnings to keep away. I'm sure it's fine though, so we kept going forwards, coming to a stop, then starting to ascend on a stankin' awesome elevator lift. At the top of the elevator, we came face to face with a huge cobra statue, then slide forwards and lean into his mouth as we hear that we're under his control. Then we fall down a drop and twist to the side, rising up and snapping the other way, then dropping back down and rising into some brakes. And by this point, I was really confused. I thought this was like a spinning coach. I thought it was supposed to be... Oh, okay. We spun backwards, then dropped down a little dip, leveled out, and dropped again in a really weird helix that rose up, dropped back down, then rose up again before starting to climb another, much lamer lift. When we made it to the top, we quickly leveled out, throwing me forwards, then painfully slamming me back before dropping down, and finally we were freely spinning. I spun to the side as we fell into a trench, then stayed sideways as we went over a huge turn, finally going back to straight as we dove down, then rose into another turn, yet again taking my car sideways. We twisted through a few small turns, then hopped up, hit some brakes, and over the speakers heard, "There is no escape." Ending the ride. That was such a weird coaster. Like, first off, I should say, fantastic family coaster, incredible family coaster, but it was just so weird. Like, I went in expecting it to be spinning the whole time, like spinning coasters normally do, but the first half, we just went up that just awesome elevator lift and then went forwards, and I was like, what the heck is happening? Then we started to spin, and I was like, okay, here we go, and we just turned backwards and like dipped and twisted around backwards, like, what? And then finally, after going up a second lift hill, then we started spinning. No, that's not the weirdest part. The weirdest part is at the end, they had this big thing of like, oh, nobody could escape the Cobra's Curse. Exit to the left, take your bags. Like, did we escape? Are we still Cobra's Cursed? After that, I wanted to go over and ride one of the park's most iconic coasters, Cheetah Hunt, but unfortunately, it was shut down. So in the meantime, while I waited for it to come back up, I decided to go over to a different coaster. But along the way, I came across something so crazy, I just had to ride it. Falcon's Fury, which might be the single scariest ride in the world. It's a drop tower, but it's not a normal drop tower. It's over 300 feet tall, reaches over 60 miles an hour, and at the top, instead of just dropping you, it tilts you 90 degrees, then drops you facing straight down. So I know this isn't a coaster, but I can't not ride it. Like, I'm fairly desensitized to coasters. It's not often that one of them freaks me out based on how tall it is, fast it is, crazy it is, anything like that. Drop towers still get me, and that's like normal drop towers. towers. This might legitimately be the scariest drop tower in the world. I'm legitimately freaking out. So I climbed onto the tower, then just sat there for a little, and already I was pretty nervous, even though we hadn't even left the ground yet. Oh, man. Shout out to the people next to me, by the way. They said they were fans of the channel. Then we started climbing up the 300-foot tall tower, and with every second that went by, I could feel myself getting more and more scared. I'm starting to rethink this a bit. Maybe this wasn't my best idea. We started to climb faster as I watched everything on the ground slowly shrink, and we were climbing for ages, and the whole time I just kept thinking about what was gonna happen at the top, because I knew the moment we got there, the seats were gonna point me straight down. Oh, we are still going up. Oh, man. Then, with absolutely no warning, the seat started tilting forwards, and this was so much scarier than I thought it was gonna be. Oh! 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 I don't like that! Oh, man! I thought this would be the top, but somehow, even while staring straight down, we were still climbing, the tower forcing me to look down the 300-foot drop, knowing we could fall at any second, but having no idea when. All I could do was stare straight down and brace. Just let us drop! Oh my god, dude, I'm out of breath. That is one of the scariest things I've ever done. That might be bar none the scariest ride I've ever been on. Oh my god, I don't even know how to put into words what just happened. Dude, I'm tearing up. I was not prepared for just how scary it was gonna be to stare straight down from 300 plus feet in the air. That's the scariest thing I've ever done. That is also, hands down, without a doubt, the best drop tower I've ever been on. Tower of Terror. That is amazing, and that is horrifying. After that, I needed to go on a chill ride, and thankfully the coaster right across from it is a family coaster, so it should be pretty chill. A keyword, should. So despite this being the newest ride in the park and a very clear family coaster, this thing gets a lot of hate online. Like, you would not believe, if you were not in enthusiast circles, how much people were just dogging on this thing when it opened. It is apparently disastrously rough. By the way that people describe this thing, you would think it gives you an instant concussion. So weirdly enough, even though it is a family ride and I normally like family rides, I'm not really looking forward to this, but who knows, maybe people have just blown it way out of proportion and it's not actually that rough. It starts by climbing a fairly fast lift hill, and before I knew it, we were at the top, dropping down a little, then snapping to the side and twisting to the ground, only to rise back up and glide through a slow turn. Up to this point, the coaster had been pretty smooth, but there was still plenty of time for it to become rough as we fell out of the turn, twisted up, snapped sideways, and crawled through a long, slow turnaround that left me dangling sideways for a moment before falling down, twisting to the other way, then suddenly snapping to the other side and soaring over the ride's entrance in a turn so steep it kind of feels like it goes upside down. By this point, the coaster had definitely started to get a bit rougher, but nothing was bothering me yet as we twisted up and smoothly dropped into a slightly forceful helix, diving into a little trench before rising out and whipping to the other side, turning around and flying into the brakes. Have I lost my mind? Have I gone mad? That's not rough. By the descriptions that people give of this thing, you'd think it would beat you up like Mike Tyson. That is a perfectly enjoyable experience. I don't know if I'd go far enough to call it smooth per se. It did definitely have a bit of a shake and a bit of a shimmy to it, but because it was just a lap bar, it didn't hold me into the shake. Like, my head didn't shake around at all. Like, it really is not that bad. After that, I went over to the very back of the park for a coaster that some people say is somehow even more intense than Montu, Kingda. So this coaster is fairly old, but it's been getting a lot of press and a lot of attention recently, because earlier in this year, it looked like it was gone forever. Like, it had been shut down for, I think, like a year straight, and people thought that it was just gone. And a lot of people were really upset about that, because this is apparently a genuinely fantastic coaster, one of the most intense in the world. And then just recently, like a month or two ago, they opened it back up. They generated a lot of buzz, and a lot of people were saying just how happy they were that this is back, because this is apparently a genuinely, unbelievably good coaster. So I am very excited to see just how good it actually is. It starts with one of the coolest lifts I've ever seen, threading the needle through the coaster's enormous loop. When we made it to the top, we went down a little drop, then got whipped to the side and violently flung down a wild curving drop, immediately shooting through that loop around the lift, crushing me into my seat with a shocking amount of force. And somehow the coaster only gets crazier from here. We fell fell out of the loop, tore through a trench, rising up and snapping sideways, then diving to the ground again, kicking me into my seat with so much force that I slightly blacked out. Of course, I had no time to recover as we shot up and flew through an insane roll, whipping me to the side and throwing me out of my seat as we twisted above the path. Again, the coaster didn't even give me a moment to breathe as we plunged through another trench and blasted forwards, rocketing up into a massive roll that I did not see coming thanks to this path blocking the view. I was thrown into my seat as we twisted up, then whipped sideways, dropped down a little, then immediately rose back up, only to snap the other way and shoot back towards the ground in a moment so powerful and so fast that as we rose up into some brakes, I was just in awe. And the brakes themselves weren't really a brake, as I was snapped back to reality as we fell off the brakes and dove into the iconic interlocking corkscrews, rising up into the first one through a shockingly rough section that, due to the over-the-shoulder restraints, shook my entire body. I didn't have time to be in pain though, as we twisted through the super snappy corkscrew, then rose up and snapped the other way, diving into the second corkscrew, which, yet again, was weirdly rough. Every other part of the coaster was amazingly smooth, especially considering how intense the coaster is, and how it opened all the way back in 1993. Thankfully, it was only rough for a second, as we snapped through the second corkscrew and dove under a path, rising out of the trench, only to snap to the side and dive into a tunnel, whipping us into an unbelievably forceful helix that pressed me into my seat and held me there as we spun around, eventually rising up and hitting the brakes.
That was incredible too. It is unbelievable to me just how intense every single ride in this park is. Legitimately, if you take this ride and put it in 99% of theme parks around the world, this is hands down the most intense coaster. But in this park, we haven't even ridden all the coasters, yet this still isn't even the most intense one we've ridden. I would say this is like a slight step down underneath Montu. It died out a little bit at the end with like the interlocking corkscrew. That final helix was wild, but the corkscrews before it were just like, they were okay. They didn't do too much. But apart from that, every single moment of that coaster was just brutally intense. That is fantastic. I can see why so many people were so scared when it looked like that was going to be shut down forever.
After that, I wanted a break for a second, and I just so happened to stumble across the park's brand new Wild Oasis area, which I wanted to go to for one reason and one reason only. They have both a giant anteater and capybaras here. And this is a good time to mention that while this is definitely a theme park, it's also a full-fledged zoo, having a huge savanna that's filled with animals. You can see these on the park's incredibly enjoyable train ride, which I really loved. I don't see many people talking about this for some reason, but this is basically just the safari ride at Disney, but on a train. You can also go on a ski lift that kinda goes over the plains. This is unfortunately an upcharge attraction, costing around $5, though it is included in all annual passes. The animal views on this one seem to be a bit more touchy than on the train. I got fairly unlucky and didn't really see anything, at least in the plains. There are some animal enclosures underneath the Skyliner, but you can get a much better view of those from below. If you really want to see animals though, and you have a fair bit extra money to spend, you should check out the safari. I'm not gonna lie, this is one of my favorite things I've ever done at a park. I didn't really do any research into it, so I went in expecting it to kind of be like the safari ride at Animal Kingdom, but I quickly realized that it was gonna be a lot cooler than that, as we came to a stop so close to some attics that I felt like I could reach out and touch them. Also, in the distance, I could see another Jeep feeding some giraffes, but I figured that was just a different tour as we rolled into a completely different part of the savannah, going past an ostrich that looks like a rock and coming across these zebras, which, according to the tour guide, are really mean, being essentially a combo of a horse and a donkey. We continued going further into the savannah and saw some rhinos off in the distance, and a lot of rhino poop. According to the guide, they have to clean up nearly 1,000 pounds of rhino poop every single day. We went past a gazelle and went back into the first area we went through, which is when I found out that we were, in fact, going to get to feed the giraffes. That was, if there were any out to be fed. It was a fairly chilly day, by giraffe standards at least, and so they were all huddling to the side in a warmer area. Giraffes have been my favorite animal for literally my entire life, so to be this close to getting to feed one only for them to all be hiding away would be devastating. But as we got closer, I saw that there was one giraffe who clearly knew it was feeding time and was waiting patiently for us to arrive and start feeding her. And almost immediately when we showed up, I was handed some lettuce and got to feed the giraffe, which is hands down one of the coolest experiences of my life. Being able to stand this close to one, let alone feed it not once but twice, was just completely surreal. That was also, unfortunately, the end of the pretty long safari as the trams took us back out of the savannah.
Dude, I don't even know how to wrap a segment like that up. I've never experienced anything like that before. Like, genuine. I'm gobsmacked. I'm blown away. Like, I cannot believe that that's in a theme park. It is an upcharge. It's expensive. I got it for half off. I got that for $20. That is probably the best $20 I've ever spent.
Also, while walking out of the safari, I came across the park's giant swings, and I had to give it a ride. This is hands down one of my favorite types of rides. The way it throws me out of my seat while super high in the sky, then slams me back down while launching me forwards or backwards is just so much fun. If you're in a park that has one of these, you need to check it out. After that, I remembered that I still hadn't ridden Cheetah Hunt, and seeing as I was kind of in the same area, I decided it was a good time to go back and ride it, because surely it's back up. Right? No, it was not up, and the more I looked at it, the more I realized that it probably wasn't going to be opening back up. So unfortunately, I can't really talk about it in the video, but fortunately, I know someone who can. Zooder Loopers. He's a fellow theme park creator, this just happens to be his home park, and somehow I was able to convince him to talk about the ride for a little.
Spino, I'm bummed that you didn't get to ride Cheetah Hunt because this is a highly slept on roller coaster, and this is one of those roller coasters that's really, really unique. From the very beginning, as you're rolling out of the station, you get hit by a surprise launch into a small upward turn that takes you around the plaza before you dive into the second of 3 launches, which totally knocks the wind out of you in the best way possible. Then you climb up an 100-foot tower, and unlike most drops, you just meander around. It's supposed to replicate a cheetah climbing a tree and stalking its prey, which is one of my favorite parts of the ride. The whole ride is designed to mimic the movement of the cheetah in the wild. Then, as the name states, it begins the hunt as you dive down a steep 130-foot tall drop and enter the sprawling wilderness that is Cheetah Hunt's layout. Going up into this weird hill that turns to the right, then kind of whips to the left, but instead of giving any airtime, it's very graceful. Then you dive down under this bridge, which is a great close call moment before hitting the Heartline roll. This is one of my favorite upside down parts on any roller coaster because it's relatively high up, happens above some water, and since you do it on an incline, you go through it pretty slow, allowing you to kind of hang there upside down, which is a really, really fun sensation. You then pull out of the roll into the brakes, which slow you down just a little bit before you dive right over the water. Now, I know I said the roll was one of my favorite parts, but the water section is by far my favorite part. There's all these turns really, really close to the water. I always love to extend my arms out and try and touch it, but I can never reach it. Then you go into these little snappy turns right over the water, which kind of send you flying out of your seat, but not in an aggressive way, more in a way that makes you feel like you're gliding over the water. Then, just when you think the ride is over, you fly into the third and final launch. Flying into this massive airtime hill sends you flying out of your seat for a good couple seconds, giving you no time to process what just happened as you dive back down super close to the ground and enter a bunch of more fast whippy turns, rising up and over some animal enclosures, diving into a trench, and abruptly swerving into a final sharp turn, slamming into the brakes, ending the very long and unique ride. This is a very special roller coaster, and if you get the chance to ride it, take it all in, because there's nothing quite like it.
Huge shout out to Zooder for taking the time out of his day to do that. If you like this channel, I can almost guarantee that you will love his. He makes some of the most unique and entertaining videos in the theme park space. His video about relocating the Kingda Ka trains is actually like a movie. I'll have his channel linked at the end of the video and in the description. Anyways, I made my way back past the Capybaras and over to the next coaster, Tigress, which, to be honest, I wasn't really that excited about.
So I rode this exact same coaster over at Busch Gardens in Williamsburg, and I wasn't a huge fan of it there. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not expecting to be a huge fan of it here, but you never know. Who knows? Maybe it'll be awesome.
It starts with me fighting my way into the unbelievably uncomfortable trains, featuring an amalgamation of no leg room, a huge lap bar, and these floppy plastic shoulder straps that are, for some inexplicable reason, known as the comfort collars. After wrestling my way into the train, I sat there for a second, then launched forwards in a somewhat forceful launch, but it doesn't give us enough speed, so we roll back and hit the launch again, rocketing through the station and shooting up, snapping to the side, which caused me to chop my neck on the quote-unquote comfort collars. We dove back down, ripped through the station again, and now we'd collected a ton of speed, so we flew all the way to the top, twisting around, then quickly flattening out, violently throwing me out of my seat. We slowly twisted through a roll that held me upside down for a second, super far above the ground, before straightening out and falling down what should be a crazy drop, but had a brake on it for some reason, slowing us down, then letting letting us go as we spun around, then shot back up into a weird loop that does not go upside down and just kind of rotates around. Honestly, if this did go upside down, the ride would be a fair bit better. It's going slow enough that it would hold you upside down for ages, which would be awesome. Instead though, it's just a dull moment, and it's also the grand finale of the ride as we fell out of the loop thing and the launch track slowed us down, going through the station one final time and shooting halfway up before slowing down more and fully coming to a stop.
Man, I can't help but feel like that coaster should be good. Like, as a sum of its parts, it's really good. I'm gonna be dead serious. It is held back by having those weird floppy plastic things on me. I don't understand what use those things have. They chop my neck. They make it really hard to get in and out. It's really uncomfortable to just sit in the train. That should legitimately be an incredible coaster. It has some great forces to it. It just has some of the worst restraints I've ever experienced. By the way, shout out to one of the ops on that ride. They're a fan of the channel. If you're watching, hi.
After that, I went over to what should be one of the scariest coasters in the park. SheiKra, which stands over 200 feet tall, has a huge vertical drop, but it doesn't just drop you, it holds you teetering over the edge, then it drops you.
So normally for coasters like this, I'd start by hyping up the main gimmick of the coaster, that being the drop behind, which normally is pretty cool, but I feel like this park has just ruined that for me because that is the literal exact same thing that Falcon's Flight does, except Falcon's Flight is like twice as high and then drops you straight down facing towards the ground. This just goes into a traditional drop after that. I don't know. I feel like I've had this coaster ruined for me now.
It starts by dropping down a little, turning around, and starting to climb up the massive lift. At the top, I got a gorgeous view over the park and the surrounding area as the enormous train slowly turned around.
Man, you know, I'm so happy they made these trains so big. I can fit me and all of my friends on one row.
When we finally made it to the drop, the train slowed down, then inched forwards, creeping over the edge. Then we just hung there, which should have been really scary, but compared to the drop tower, it was light work.
Oh, this is nothing.
Especially because I was in the back row, which was barely over the edge. Though that did mean when we finally dropped, I was violently thrown out of my seat as we fell down the huge drop, then blasted into a massive loop, stalling out upside down for a second, then twisting to the side and plummeting to the ground. We quickly turned around and rose up into some brakes, which nearly completely stopped the train, giving me an opportunity to really soak in what just happened.
That drop was so much fun. I really want to do another one. Oh, hey, whoa!
Yet again, I was flung into the air as we plummeted down, smashing through a building and flying through a tunnel, only to shoot out, slowly turn around, and drop into the ride's grand finale, flying across the water and creating a huge Wait, there's no water. Oh, well, okay then. We went straight across the concrete, then popped up and twisted through a really slow helix before snapping to the side and slamming to a stop.
This type of coaster is always such a good time. Like, I know there's a lot of people who are really against them because they're a one-trick pony, which they undoubtedly are, but that is still an incredibly fun ride. Though I will say I am a bit let down. At the end, you're supposed to go over this big pool of water behind me and create this huge, super cool looking splash, but for some reason, they just have the pool drained, so the big finale of the ride is just, whoa, we're going over concrete! So it ends on a whimper, but I did still really enjoy it.
After that, it was finally time to take on the craziest, fastest, and most intense coaster in the park, and possibly the entire country. Air Grover. It starts with a really quick lift, giving me a great view of the next coaster we were gonna ride, though I didn't get a look at it for a long time as we fell down the drop and twisted through a weirdly rough helix, eventually rising up, slowly turning around, then diving through another helix before hopping up and hitting the brakes, violently slamming my nuts into whatever this thing is that looks like it was designed solely to cause just horrendous pain. From there, it was actually finally time to go over to a coaster that looks like it has potential to be the best coaster in the entire world, Iron Gwazi, which is the tallest and fastest hybrid coaster on the planet and looks to be one of the craziest coasters ever created.
I do not feel it is an exaggeration to say that what is behind me has potential to be, at the very least, the best coaster in the country, if not the best coaster in the world. It looks unbelievable. Like, I cannot believe that this exists. This might be the most excited I've been to ride a coaster this whole year. Like, I am so excited to get on this thing. But real quick, before we do, I gotta do this. If you've been enjoying seeing my reactions to the rides and coasters and me being able to record on rides, please consider hitting the subscribe button. This park is one of the very, very few parks in the world that allows anybody to record using like a wrist-mounted GoPro or a chest mount. Most parks you need to get permission, and at the moment I really struggle getting permission. I've literally never received an email back from a park as of the moment about getting on-ride filming permission. I don't know why this is, but if you've enjoyed these videos in the past and want to see more like this, please consider hitting the subscribe button. With the way that YouTube recommends videos right now, it won't really affect anything for you, but the bigger that subscriber number gets, the more legitimate this channel looks, and the higher chance that I actually get, at the very least, a response about filming permission. Okay, that is more than enough self-promotion. I'm so excited.
It starts by shooting out of the station and going down a little drop that somehow managed to toss me from my seat as we curved under the lift. After a fairly long climb, I finally made it to the top of the lift, which slowed down to the top, giving me a second to take in the view. I didn't have long though as we dove down the drop, violently ejecting me out of my seat as we fell down the seemingly never-ending drop. We quickly rose up and twisted to the side, only to bank the other way and start plummeting down another drop, flinging me from my seat and holding me in the air as we rocketed towards the ground. I didn't even have a second to catch my breath as we twisted back up, then out of nowhere whipped to the side and spiraled down an insane roll, somehow flinging me into the air. We blasted up and threw a super forceful high turn that somehow managed to pop me into the air for a second on the way out, then turned a bit and whipped to the side, flying over the station and shooting me airborne while sideways, which is a really unusual sensation. We narrowly avoided the lift hill, then popped into a crazy hill, tossing me up, then slamming me back down and snapping into another turn that again had me in the air while sideways before rising up and rolling into a little stall, holding us upside down for a second before whipping out and turning around. We hopped over a little hill, then continued turning and popped over another one that quickly leveled off, slamming me back into the seat, then rising over another hill that I expected to also be small but wasn't and caught me off guard. We turned around and flew down another hill so large and so powerful it's better than most coasters' first drops, then twisted to the side and shot into the brakes, ending the ride with an unbelievable amount of speed.
Bro, I don't even know what just happened. I don't even know how to put that into words. That is one of the best coasters I've ever been on. The pacing on that thing is unreal. It is unfathomable. I cannot put it into words just how fast that thing moves from one element to the next, and every single element on it hits like a dump truck. It's insane. I haven't been this taken aback by a coaster. I don't even know when the last time. That might actually genuinely be the best coaster I've ever ridden. I gotta sit down, I gotta think about it for a minute, but that is better than so many incredible coasters. That is like miles ahead of Steel Vengeance, which is made by the same people and is the same model, and a lot of people compare the two. I don't know how you compare the two and don't have this thing come out ahead.
By the way, at the end of the year, I'm going to be putting together a list of the top 15 rides I've ridden on the channel, so we'll see where it ranks then once I've had a little bit more time to really think about it. Anyways though, another just huge shout out to Zooder. You can check out his channel right here, and if you want to watch another video from me, you should check out this video from the world's first Six Flags.